Have you ever wondered how Singapore, a tiny island nation with no natural resources, became one of the richest countries in the world? Singapore's story is a remarkable one, with its journey from a struggling nation to a global financial center. Despite facing numerous challenges such as trade restrictions, violence, and high unemployment rates, Singapore managed to transform its economy and infrastructure under the leadership of Lee Kuan Yew. But how did they do it? In this video, we will explore the fascinating history of Singapore's rise to prosperity and discover the strategies that enabled it to become one of the wealthiest countries in the world. So sit tight and join us as we uncover the secrets of Singapore's success. In 1965, something extraordinary happened in Singapore. It was kicked out of Malaysia, a newly formed country. This is quite rare as countries usually celebrate their independence. At the time, Singapore's leader, Lee Kuan Yew, had the foresight to see that the country was headed towards economic disaster. This was despite his previous support for the Malaysian merger. Before Singapore gained independence, it was in dire straits. A large chunk of its population lived in slums, and many were addicted to opium. Violence was on the rise, and there was little industry to speak of. Unemployment rates were high, and the country faced trade restrictions and hostility from its bigger neighbors. On top of all that, Singapore lost 20% of its economy when the British military withdrew. Despite all these challenges, Singapore managed to overcome the odds and transform into the prosperous nation it is today. It currently ranks as the fourth richest country in the world, and its people are known for being highly educated, healthy, and productive. Singapore is a leader in high-tech manufacturing, boasts world-class infrastructure, and serves as Southeast Asia's hub for finance and logistics. British East India Company only had one shipping route that brought in 50% of its revenue, the Malacca Strait, and it wanted to secure that route by building its own port. The company avoided taking any actions that might incite the Dutch, who had a stronghold in the area. Despite this, Sir Thomas Raffles, a determined official, established a free port on the strategically placed island of Singapore at the tip of the Malayan Peninsula. Despite the lack of taxes on commercial and port activities, this move attracted traders from neighboring regions, resulting in a boom in trade within 4 years. People flocked to Singapore in search of tax-free wealth as more and more ships started to appear on the horizon. But because there was little administrative oversight, the city grew to be a hub for illegal activities like prostitution, gambling, opium dens, and the trade in slaves. Nevertheless, due to booming international trade and the opening of the Suez Canal in Egypt, the city's significance and popularity have only increased. The canal reduced shipping costs and cut the distance between England and China by 5,000 miles, which raised the demand for shipping. As the main port in the area, Singapore gained official British Crown colony status in 1867. Singapore became the center of Southeast Asia's wealth as a result of the introduction of rubber trees to Malaya and the high demand for tin. Resources were taken from the peninsula, processed there, and shipped around the world. Singapore's lack of natural resources led to a mutually advantageous economic relationship with Malaya. The British military presence expanded along with the Singapore's importance, spawning a dockyard industry and offering services to military personnel. With a population of more than 200,000 by 1900, Singapore had a higher standard of living than other nations in the region. Despite being far from Europe, global conflicts in the 20th century had an impact on the island's nation, which abruptly put an end to Singapore's century of unbroken growth. After the Japanese Empire invaded Malaya in December 1941, Singapore was attacked 2 months later. Singapore, defying London's orders, submitted to Japan on February 15, 1942, beginning a 3-year period of suffering and devastation. The island was left in ruins, and the reconstruction effort was chaotic and uncontrolled, leading to haphazard slums and unfinished infrastructure. The population was plagued by opium and violence, and the island developed a reputation for being filthy and destitute. The diverse population was little integrated by the British, and each group lived separately, frequently with competing interests. Due to Singapore's poor living conditions and rising unemployment, violence increased, making the situation there worse. Due to its lack of resources and exploitation, Singapore had little desire to secede from the British Empire. However, the island's crippled economy, rising social unrest, and the decolonization of other regions of the world led to a growing desire for independence among the population. Despite not wanting independence, Singapore was faced with the challenge of creating a wealthy nation without a national identity and with limited resources. The challenging task of lifting the vast majority of the populace out of poverty, educating them, and providing jobs fell to Lee Kuan Yew. After gaining independence, the British military left, which worsened the economic situation by eliminating more jobs. Malaysia additionally intended to economically harm Singapore by stealing its trade, and Indonesia may have had invasion aspirations. Lee Kuan Yew made the decision to modernize Singapore using authoritarian methods, such as limiting individual freedoms and imprisoning political opponents without charge. Lee Kuan Yew understood that the fate of Singapore depended on him. Even minor infractions like chewing gum use and graffiti have been punished with public caning. While silencing religious extremists, communist Chinese, and Malays who wanted to reunite with Malaysia, the government sued anyone who spoke out against it. The authoritarian rule was imposed by Lee Kuan Yew in response to the underlying, potentially explosive ethnic and social tensions, which successfully reduced violence and stabilized the country. The populace accepted this compromise for social harmony and economic prosperity despite restrictions on freedom. In theory, free elections continued, but they were rigged to create a one-party state under the PAP, who still hold power today. Lee carried out a radical economic overhaul that made a miracle possible once social and political stability had been achieved. 70% of Singaporeans lived in slums without plumbing, making the housing crisis an urgent priority. Lee passed a contentious law that made it possible for the governments to purchase land at a discount and buy affordable housing on a large scale. Lee implemented policies to encourage people to purchase their apartments at low prices because he did not want people to be dependent on the government. The Central Provident Fund, which was originally intended to be a pension fund but it was later changed to permit citizens to use it for housing, was where a portion of citizens' income was saved. The required amount of savings eventually reached 25% of each paycheck, with employers also contributing 25%. Singapore now has the highest savings-to-income ratio of any country. With help of these policies, residents were able to purchase homes at reasonable prices. 80% of the Singaporeans currently reside in homes that they own that were initially constructed by the government. Additionally, Lee implemented tax and regulatory policies that attracted businesses and produced jobs because he understood how important foreign investment was to Singapore's development. Additionally, he supported exports and made investment in industrial parks and infrastructure, which led to zero unemployment and a quickly expanding economy. Singapore adopted hyper-capitalistic policies in order to attract more foreign investment and ranks as the second easiest country to do business in. Lee Kuan Yew implemented measures to fight corruption while the government increased its involvement in the economy, including the death penalty for suspected criminals and high salaries for government employees. These efforts paid off, making Singapore one of the least corrupt nations of the world and increasing investor confidence, which led to further growth and reduced wasteful spending. Lee made investments in technical schools, healthcare, and employee training programs because he understood that Singapore's most valuable resource was its human capital. This led to a positive feedback loop of productivity gains, allowing Singapore to expand its industry and become a major producer of refined petroleum and a hub for Southeast Asia. Singapore's financial sector also grew, becoming the fourth largest in the world. To fill the gap between entrepreneurs and facilitate growth, Lee organized a group of civil servants and international businessmen to create state-owned enterprises such as Singapore Airlines and steel and chemical manufacturing companies. Despite being state-owned, these enterprises were profitable due to low corruption, efficient management, and low costs. The profits were placed in sovereign wealth funds, which was used to fund healthcare, infrastructure, and education. Today, Singapore is one of the wealthiest, most advanced, and most competitive economies in the world, with affordable housing, world-class healthcare, and highly educated students. Lee's pragmatic policies prioritize Singapore's long-term prosperity over ideology, leading to the country's success. Thanks for watching. Singapore's rise from a struggling nation to one of the wealthiest in the world is truly remarkable. It's a story of visionary leadership, hard work, and perseverance. Today, Singapore serves as a shining example of what can be accomplished when a country prioritizes education, innovation, and infrastructure. Hopefully this video has provided some insight into how Singapore became the successful nation it is today. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more informative content.